Good evening. If you've not been watching before, this is one of a series of short live streams, around about 10 minutes, talking about various aspects of history, local history around Swinton and Kilnust. Tonight I'm sat at Swinton House on Fitzwilliam Street. It's a Grade 2 listed building, a Georgian building, sits right on Fitzwilliam Street. At the time, Fitzwilliam Street was the main road through Swinton, and it was the stone-built village centred around Fitzwilliam Street, with Swinton House, Swinton Hall and Highfield House, various farm buildings as well. Swinton House is a Grade 2 listed building. It's made from local stone, and its main front door has been sealed for many years. So I'm going to talk tonight a little bit about the history of the building itself, but also how that factors in, and how law and order, law and disorder happened in the area in times gone by. So the reason I'm at Swinton House is it was formerly the home of one of the town's magistrates, a gentleman called Mr. Otter. And the power of the magistrates was quite significant. The office of Justice of the Peace actually goes back many years. As early as 1327, there's an act that says good and lawful men should be appointed in every county to guard the peace. And that was enshrined in law in Edward III's time in 1361, where the office of Justice of the Peace was established. An unpaid role, but a very important role and a key aspect of governance in England at that time. So Swinton House, actually, in the cellars, there are the remains of cells, which a lot of people don't realise, that there was a little prison in the cellar of what was a family house. And so the family would be living upstairs, and often there would be felons locked up downstairs. I've taken a number of school visits around the building, and the youngsters find this absolutely fascinating. The people wouldn't be detained for long, though, to be fair. Probably the longest there would be maybe 3 nights total if they were locked up on a Friday night, and maybe on the Monday then they would be transferred to more suitable accommodation in Doncaster often, or towards Rotherham, or even in more serious offences as far away as York. So Mr. Otter resided in this property. We do have an account here, and this dates from 1887, and this is when the building, Swinton House, became available to let. And it says, to be let, the above residence late in the occupation of Henry Otter Esquire, J.P., and the house contains an entrance hall, dining, drawing room, morning and smoking rooms on the ground floor, 7 bed and dressing rooms, and 8 servants' rooms. There was one water closet on the 2nd floor, excellent cellars, doesn't mention the cells, larder, pleasure and kitchen gardens, conservatory, vinery, the paddock, and 5 acres in the paddock, and there was 36 acres of grassland could be added if required. That grassland was now on the grounds of Swinton Academy, or Swinton Comprehensive School, as was. Another account that we have is actually an eyewitness account from, and I'll show you this photograph. This gentleman's called Mr. Edgar Richardson, and he was the town's he was a shoemaker, and he had his premises in one of these buildings here, right at the junction of Milton Street and Fitzwilliam Street. And this account dates from the 1930s. I'll read it to you, what Mr. Richardson had to say. So he was a shoemaker for over 50 years. It says, for 50 years the life of Swinton passed an unceasing panorama before his eyes from his shop on Milton Street. Mr. Richardson is Swinton's oldest boot and shoemaker. He sits today in the window of his shop, situated at the junction of Fitzwilliam Street and Milton Street, as he has sat there for 53 years, steadily plying his craft. Little takes place outside on the street which escapes his notice, and this is the key sentence. In the old days, there was frequent excitement as delinquents were dragged by the police past the shop to Swinton House, where Mr. Otter J.P. dealt out the justice. So an eyewitness account which shows how Mr. Otter would have people dragged to his house by the police and deal with them accordingly. Now, Swinton House has changed little, however the grounds have changed somewhat. On this old photograph we can see the boundary wall of Swinton House here. This is Fitzwilliam Street, and this wall was taken back I think in the late 1960s to actually widen the road. This other boundary wall here remains, and that's where the Beechers properties are now. So you can see in times past, Swinton House had enough room for tennis courts on the front of the property. As far as law enforcement went, obviously the JPs couldn't do it all, so there was an office of village constable. And again, that is a very, very old office, and it was an appointment which was not always sought. It was an appointment of a citizen was sort of chosen for that role. The last parish constable we have noted in Swinton is 1831, is a man called John Wood. And the parish constable had a whole range of duties, including provision of the watch and ward, day and night duties, ensuring the upkeep of local means of punishment and imprisonment, such as stocks. And there's also an account of a portable stock being issued to the parish constable in Swinton, but we think that was probably like an early form of handcuffs. Now there was also a stocks situated somewhere near the town cross in times of past, and so that was an area where people could be contained for minor offences, but unfortunately at the sort of mercy of any townspeople who wanted to throw anything at them for that. There was also he looked after pauper children, the removal of itinerant strangers, and also welfare role, the welfare of the poor. The constable actually had means to give out coal and funds to people who were in need. Arms supply, convening meetings, assisting the church wardens, caring for the parish bowl was another role. And if you lived in the coastal area, your duties included helping shipwrecks and stranded seafarers. So quite a wide range of duties. But clearly this ad hoc system couldn't carry on because the constable was one individual. He could ask for assistance by raising what they call the hue and cry, and it was then the responsibility of everyone who was able to come and aid the constable. But one person in this sort of like this amateurish role couldn't continue. And in 1829, the father of the British police, Sir Robert Peel, founded the police service in London, and then that slowly got rolled out to the other areas, and it wasn't until 1856 that this area of the West, as then was the West Riding, was covered by a professional police force, the West Riding Police Force. Towns and cities often had police forces earlier on, but the places in between, like the West Riding, it was 1856. It wasn't until the 1890s, and I'll show you another picture, the 1890s, that Swinton obtained its first police station. So this pub is the gate, and right opposite the building is still there, was Swinton's police station, with proper cells and accommodation for the officers. And at one time there was probably up to about 10 policemen actually allocated to there. Now they didn't all live in that accommodation. They did live in police houses. And another photograph I'm going to show you again relates to the Fitzwilliam Street area. This is now gone. This sort of sits between Slade Road and the Maisonettes on Fitzwilliam Street. It's a row of cottages that went downwards, and this was actually called Bobby's Row, and we believe it was called Bobby's Row because it was one of the police officers lived there. So Bobby's get their name from Sir Robert Peel, Bobby Peel, and it's the affectionate name, if you like, for the police is a Bobby. The other name Cop came from cop catching somebody, for copping someone. That's where you get the name of coppers. We'll not go into any other sort of nicknames for police, but I'll leave that to your own imagination. So Swinton gets its police station in the 1890s, removes the need for people to be locked up in a private dwelling. In later times, Swinton House became a club for the Manvers Colliery Company and later the National Coal Board, and for management grades, and now remains just a club for members. Sadly, closed at this point in time. Another couple of photos just to sort of bring the story of the police a little bit more up to date. Here we have, this is 1909. This is the Hospital Sunday March raising funds for Montague Hospital. There's the Humpback Bridge. This is what we now call Broomville Gardens, these properties here. The sign for the boatyard you might recognise over the hump, and there right in the middle we have a contingent of the boys in blue, the Swinton's finest in 1909. In later years, this is towards the Second World War. Again, we have a contingent of police there in their helmets, the same location. The houses here in Broomville Gardens have now disappeared. It's open land. The sign's still there. There's the Humpback Bridge, and behind them we have a contingent of specials, special constables, because this is the Second World War era. So a little bit of history about the Office of Magistrates, how police forces were formed, taking over from the role of the village constable. Village constable also had a house allocated to him in Swinton, and that house is still in situ. It's a private dwelling now behind the Robin pub, and that was once the constable's house, so which was appointed by the Earl Fitzwilliam for the parish officer. So thank you very much for listening, and we hope to continue with these short talks as the days go on.